You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode.
Before we get started on this episode, here's a not-so-short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster nor the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak to a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's mold education courses, such as Mold 101 and the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit, by going to cnccontractorservices.com. Again, check out his mold education courses at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. We have my wife, Cassandra. We're going to talk about something that's probably going to ruffle a few feathers.
Oh, yes, certification.
We talked about what an IEP is, and you kind of asked some questions, and I prepared our audience that we would be talking about in an upcoming episode about certifications. So let's just dive into it.
Absolutely. I think it's important to start out with, I like to just say this because I have a background in higher education. I've been a professor for a long, long time, and I also have done certifications myself. Certifications are not standard across the board. They're given through accreditation bodies that basically set themselves up and decided that they were going to be accreditation bodies. Nobody is really overseeing the accreditation bodies. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like in coaching, it's the International Coaching Federation. That's one of them. They just in 1991 said, hey, coaching needs standards. We're going to be the ones to do it.
Yeah.
But nobody, it's not, I think sometimes people think, oh, if you have a certification, it's like the federal government or some big entity. No. It's a company that became a company to offer certifications through them to say, you get our stamp of approval when you pass our test. I just wanted to set the precedent.
And for that company, they get accredited through whoever, whatever.
Yeah, but they create their own.
That's my point. It's kind of
it's manufactured.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important to start with that because I think sometimes people think that certifications are like degrees. Degrees do have accrediting bodies regionally that must go to the university, like a group of them,
right, and do
and really do audits and
yep.
investigate. That's not the same with It's the Wild West with certifications. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, and I'm sure one of the fellow professionals that teaches a course will be like, well, we get audited or whatever. But the way I like to compare it is, so you mentioned degrees. So let's say, like you have an MBA. You got yours from Auburn. Should everybody have to get their MBA from Auburn?
Well, no, of course not.
But to me, that's the same thing as saying you have to have an IICRC certification. Does that make sense?
Yes. And to your point, I guess when somebody is thinking of hiring somebody, what does proper certification mean in your industry? I just want to hear your take on that.
So it's like what we talked about with IEPs. Certifications are very important because to the consumer, to our listeners, that shows that I took the proper steps to do what I'm doing. So just for our listeners, where I do work, we're talking Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, Colorado, Montana. For the most part, we're not regulated at all. The only states I'm aware of that are regulated is New York, Florida, and Texas.
Okay.
So for me, I didn't have to go get my certifications. But I knew even way back in 2003, 2004, I'm like, I kind of have to have any credibility.
Correct.
Because we all have to start somewhere. And I want to be clear about that too. Nobody just, wakes up and does their 100th inspection or assessment or remediation project. We all have to start from ground zero. But for the most part, what I'm telling our listeners, we are not regulated at all. And that's kind of a scary thing, and I'm not going to get into politics. There's an area where there's over-regulation, and there's an area where there's under-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I have all the certifications and I carry the insurance and meet all the requirements, like I could get licensed in Texas, Florida, or New York. I have all the proper certifications. So I want to be clear about that. But if you can just go hire anybody, it's kind of scary.
It very much is. And when you're dealing with the franchises that do mold remediation and that sort of thing, the person who purchased the franchise got all the certifications, but that doesn't mean the actual technician who comes to your home has all of those certifications. They may have the bare minimum.
True. Yeah, and I want to be clear though, like most of the, franchise companies, they do require that everybody that comes into a home to do whatever it is, a mop-up, water restoration technician, WRT, they make sure they have that.
The bare minimum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when the van shows up or box truck or whatever vehicle they have and it has IICRC certified and ACAC certified and normie or whatever, that's not everybody that's in that van that's coming into work in your home.
Exactly. And so walk the audience through just what are some of the different kinds of certifications that somebody could get in the mold industry?
Oh, I typed out or printed out some stuff. There are so many different ones, but there's ACAC, which is American Council for Accredited Certification.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think everybody has to have that. Once again, that's more consulting, but once again, I don't have to pay them to be qualified. Because at the end of the day, that's all it turns into.
Exactly.
They want me to pay them every year.
Yep.
And you have, and our listeners hear me say this all the time, IICRC, which is Institute of Inspection, Cleaning and Restoration Certification.
Mm-hmm.
You have PMII, which is where I got mine from, Professional Mold Inspection Institute. You have NORMI, which is NORMI, National Organization of Remediation and Microbial Inspections.
Mm-hmm.
You have MICRO,
okay,
which is another one of my certifications, Mold Inspection Consulting and Remediation Organization. Like, there's tons out there.
Absolutely. And so what would you say, because you've gone through some of these certifications, what would you say those certifications helped you do when you were first starting?
That's an interesting question because it's been so long ago. We're talking like 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember. It taught me the basics. The first thing I did was I got certified as a home inspector.
Okay.
And it taught me the basics, but I had been in construction for years.
Okay. So really, it just teaches you the basic protocols you would need to do in the field.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Now, when I'm mocking companies and saying it's all about the money, it is about the money, but there are courses I could go take.
Mm-hmm.
I've done tons of refresher courses and continuing ed and all of that. But I want to be clear with our listeners. I'm not saying you only have to get the basics and you're done. Like, I don't believe that either. But at the end of the day, it is all it is a money-making machine.
Well, I guess that's kind of my question for you. Have you learned a lot more doing the continuing education that you do and just research that I see you do and webinars that you attend? Have you learned more doing your own continual education than from the certification?
Definitely.
Okay.
But I'm willing to do that on my own.
Okay.
So going back to the states that regulate our industry, you have to get so many hours of continuing ed.
Yes.
And some of them are very beneficial. My fellow professionals are going to agree with this. You just have to, you can do them in person, you can do them online. You got to pay for every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And some are very, very informational. There's other people in my industry that do courses that are great.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say the majority this is just an assumption. I don't have any factual data. I would guess that most in my field do what they have to do, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They could have differing reasons. There's some people that think, being having a CEIC or whatever certification, WRT is a must and all of that. Like, it just, at the end of the day, I'm of the opinion it's all about money.
Okay. Well, and the reason why I guess I'm asking the question is because far too often I think people think that because they can put a whole bunch of acronyms after their name, yeah, that it means that they know all the things there is to know. But as you talk about, every mold situation is different. Every client is different. Every dynamic is different. So just because you took courses or you got certifications does not mean that you have the knowledge you need to handle this particular case.
I think a good question for you would be is if I had to do a bunch of continuing education credits, where would I find the time to do it?
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't.
It's just like, once again, if I have to, and when I've had to, I do what I got to do. But at the end of the day, if you're that busy, you're not going to have time to go to 2 conferences a year. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So then for the person who's considering hiring somebody to do mold testing, mold remediation, what kind of weight should they put on certifications?
So like I've said, you must be certified. But as far as hiring somebody, if you're hiring somebody to do like remediation, they don't have to be IICRC certified to do remediation to those standards.
Okay.
So there's a big difference. I know what the IICRC standards are. That's most of the federal projects we do. That's what you have to do it to. So to answer your question, it's such a broad field. It's hard to even answer that. Just because somebody's a mold consultant, ACAC certified, that doesn't, does that make sense? It's a hard question to answer.
It does make sense. It just seems like there are certain certifications, especially in the mold world, that seem a bit fluffier to me than others. So when I hear somebody who's certified to be some sort of indoor healthy home consultant, I don't know what that means.
Right. And once again, what I would say to you, because you're not in the industry, ask the person, what does that mean? What qualifications does that give you? Does that make sense? Because I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you have that, but explain, for our listeners, have them explain that to you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Because I want to be clear, I'm not mocking any certifications. It's just, to answer your question, it just depends. Are you at the remediation stage? So if you're calling me and saying, hey, Steve, are you certified for mold remediation? Yeah. Are you IICRC certified? No. Oh, well, then I can't hire you. I'd be like, okay, why not? Well, because you have to be IICIC certified. I would respond and say IICIC certified or to their standards.
Yes.
And to be clear with our listeners, when it comes to the actual standards in the industry, there's literally only NORMI and IICRC.
So there's only 2. And so
there's probably a few others, but
typically they're going to follow either the IICRC standards or the NORMI standards when they do remediation. Okay, that makes sense.
And even NORMI, they're trying to catch up, but in my opinion, the IICRC standards are the best.
Okay.
But here's what's the funny part. Their standards of what they require, I was doing well before that.
Absolutely. They just consolidated it and systematized it by creating a company that certifies
and then
it.
They convinced, the states and the federal government, hey, you have to follow these standards, which I'm not against.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be standards out there. There has to be. But did I explain that very well? You don't have to be IICRC certified to do the work to those standards.
Absolutely.
I think I go way over and above.
Absolutely. So really, it comes down to don't rely on certifications alone as a way to vet and decide who you're going to hire. That may be one of your...
That's being very myopic.
Okay. So really, it goes back to what you said in a previous episode, which is get them on a discovery call. Ask them some questions. Yep. Ask them questions about their certifications.
Exactly. And, when you ask questions like, what did I learn? It's been so long ago. I'm sure I learned a lot when I got certified. But you know how much the industry has changed in 25 years? A ton.
A ton.
So it's just important. And the whole point of this episode was just to tell our listeners, like, don't be so myopic that it has to be an industrial hygienist.
Yes.
Or ACAC certified or IICRC certified or normie or whatever. And we didn't even go down this rabbit hole, and we're not, because we need to start wrapping up. But you have certifications, and then you have associations who I pay my dues. I pay dues every year to NAMRI. And at the end of the day, why do I do that? Just so I can say I'm a member of NAMRI.
Exactly.
And if somebody goes to their site, they'll pull me up. But my point is at the end of the day, it's still about money.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not being rude. If someone from NAMRI's listening, don't blast me. But what does NAMRI do for me?
Exactly. And it comes down, and this is where it comes down to, don't be so myopic that you're focused only on credentials and certifications. Yes, ask about that, but you really want to see if the person actually knows their stuff.
Yeah, because it's a double-edged sword. All the certifications doesn't make them qualified.
Exactly.
That doesn't give them the years of experience.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, 30 years of experience in doing it wrong doesn't make you qualified either. Does that make sense?
That's very true.
So it goes back to you've got to just get them on a call. That's the best way to deal with it.
Okay. So then what is your call to action for people?
We just said it. Don't fall for they have to be ACAC or IICRC or normie or whatever it is certified.
Okay.
There's plenty of organizations out there.
Absolutely.
All right. We appreciate all you listeners. We did talk last week, or I can't remember when it was, but we talked about the Mold 101 bundle.
Yes.
We have the Mold Prevention Kit, which is another digital bundle.
Oh, yes. And it will be a really good tool to help you be proactive about preventing mold. Mold 101 will teach you all about mold, but if you really want to get into what are the tactics, strategies, and things you can do
for mycotoxins,
then you have the mycotoxin prevention kit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We kind of dive a little bit deeper.
Yes, and much deeper. And if you are thinking, I don't know what mycotoxins are, then you definitely want to go to CNC Contractor Services and spend the 20 some odd bucks to get the mycotoxin prevention kit so you figure out what it is.
Yeah, I think it's 29 maybe?
Or 27, I can't remember.
Yeah, anyhow. All right, we appreciate all of you. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Are you ready to take control of your environment and protect yourself from harmful mycotoxins? If you said yes to that, check out the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit. This easy-to-follow digital program is delivered straight to your inbox, guiding you through simple steps to reduce your exposure to the harmful byproduct of toxic mold, helping you feel safer and healthier at home. The Mycotoxin Prevention Kit gives you loads of education on mycotoxins for a really affordable price. Get started today by visiting cnccontractorservices.com/mycotoxin prevention kit. That's cnccontractorservices.com/mycotoxin prevention kit.